Hello and welcome to the 67th episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Philippa Haynes of Insight 101, supporting you to stand out.
And I'm Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. I'm a mentor, speaker and debunker. Since 2023, Philippa and I have been interviewing inspiring accountants and bookkeepers who are doing great things, have years of experience, and whose stories could inspire and encourage other accountants and bookkeepers around the UK.
Yeah, we both recognise that every accountant and bookkeeper is unique and distinct. They have different backgrounds, experiences, and reasons for starting and building their practices.
So we asked them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. We look to explore the things that make them different in terms of their background, their successes, their failures, and their focus. Our aim each week is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener.
Yeah. Beyond that, we also try to fit in regular reflections episodes like this one. So today, in just 30 minutes or so, we're reflecting on 4 of our most recent interviews, and we'll both share and discuss something from each interview that resonated with us personally.
Just before we do that, a word about the sponsor of our podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, the trusted outsourcing partner to over 150 accounting and bookkeeping firms across the UK and Ireland. Led by London-based chartered accountant Mayank Pandya, with offices in London and Mumbai and a team of over 300 professionals, Pinnacle provides both compliance resourcing from accountants, bookkeepers and payroll admins to tax and audit associates and value-added support, including management accountants, virtual financial controllers, financial analysts, and more. They're GDPR compliant, ISO certified, covered by PII, and offer flexible models, full-time, part-time, or pay-as-you-go. You can even start with a trial period or join their sponsored trip to Mumbai to meet the team in person. Find out more at www.pinnacleoss.co.uk or click the link wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network. Their website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use. You just pay the tax advisor you choose after agreeing terms with them. Go take a look at their website called findataxadvisor.online, where you can also register to get their weekly tax tips, which are written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Lovely. Thank you for that. And for our first reflection today, we're going back to episode 63, where we interviewed Sharon Baker of Kinder Digital Accountants. And just before we started recording that interview, Sharon said, we're all business owners. And she was talking about accountants who run their own practices. And I think that attitude has come across in a lot of our interviews. Most of those accountants who just service their clients but don't spend time on their own business struggle more, I think, than those who evidently take time out to work on their business. Those who don't have a business partner can struggle here, and it's certainly one of the reasons that some accountants have contacted me, either to secure my mentoring support or to join the Sole Practice Club over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sharon was very strong on the importance of peers, wasn't she? And the importance of taking time out. And I know just from having looked at her LinkedIn kind of over the years that she does regularly participate in that sort of time out, which is great. I mean, one of the things that has always interested me about Sharon is the fact that she really strongly believes in kind of brand and marketing. And I think recently she's had it updated, the Kinder kind of logo and brand design. So there's always constant sort of innovation and refreshment, which is very good. And I think she also has a real understanding that your brand and your marketing isn't just your logo, for instance. It's really weaved into all of your processes. And I was very kind of pleased to hear about how she uses it for recruitment, for instance, how she has a video that explains what they're all about. And obviously that comes from the insight around kind of their values and their vision and where they're going. And they profile people as well to make sure that they fit into the Kinder ethos. So, it's all there. She's using all of those tools, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
I totally agree. On the recruitment side, I was blown away by the process that she described. It's more of experience, of course, but I'd still encourage anyone who's struggling to recruit to take a listen. And obviously, I especially like the fact that Sharon echoed something that I've long explained to accountants, and that is that your marketing is not just about attracting the right clients. You also you need to market effectively to attract the right people to join your team. And depending on the level of experience you seek, I suggest that your LinkedIn profile and your website are key places to ensure that you attract and engage your target recruits, not just your target clients and people to collaborate with or to recommend or refer you. Really important.
Yeah, totally. And I think during our session with Sharon, you highlighted just how well she's even documented the process on the website, so that anybody who is interested in how they work, it's really clear to see. And it shows that there is a thread that runs through the whole of the business, so much so that she's able to write that down and really encapsulate the Kinder approach, which I think, a lot of people talk about onboarding or how it works, but there aren't many who are really very transparent about it. And I think that is, something to be celebrated.
Very much so. And on the transparency side, related to advisory services, where Sharon says that she spends most of her time, she also admitted that only about 25% of the firm's clients need her one-to-one support. And that support, I felt that supported my contention that advisory is not right for all clients of all accountants. And I also loved her suggestions that advisory starts with really understanding what's important to clients personally and making sure their businesses can achieve that for them, which I must admit is, I like to think is what I do with my mentoring clients. And that also tied in with Sharon's view that she and her team want to stop their business clients wading through the weeds of their numbers, because that's the accountant's job, so that the business owner can focus on their real objectives.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of accountants will probably say that they do the same, but I think where Sharon kind of demonstrates that real knowledge and that communication of the knowledge is how human she is and how she really relies on building relationships. And that doesn't have to just be around the advisory piece, it's Absolutely. Around everything. And that definitely helps her and her team to really get the most out of every business and give those business owners real clarity and confidence as well.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. We should move on to episode 64, where we spoke with Jon Norton of Barefoot Accounting. And I was very touched, I have to admit it, when Jon said that he'd been fanboying me, or that he was fanboying me, because he'd been getting my weekly business development tips for years and could barely believe he was now on my podcast. And I have to say, if anyone else feels like that, do please get in touch, whether to discuss coming on the podcast, the Soul Practice Club, or just for a chat. One of the things that I'm hearing from accountants who listen to the podcast is that they see me as more of a real, genuine person than perhaps they might have imagined. And I hope that more people like Jon, who may like what they've been getting from me for years, and I'm aware the odd person puts me on a pedestal. The majority haven't got a clue who I am, so there's no ego in this at all. But don't hesitate getting in touch if you were feeling like Jon before that.
Yeah, I thought he was really kind of sweet and engaging, wasn't he? And maybe he doesn't like to be called sweet, but I think genuine and very kind of just enthusiastic, I think, and a real person. And that came out from the very moment that we started to talk to him. I love the name of the business, Barefoot Accounting, and that's, you know, how grounded he is. And also I think it's a nod just to how kind of organic he is and how he works. His kind of mantra is, let's see where this goes, I think.
Well, that's right. And that ties in with something that he mentioned that I don't think we'd heard on the podcast previously, which was how he engages staff initially on 0 hours contracts, because that works both for him as a practice owner and for the staff, obviously, as long as they don't feel they're being exploited. But essentially what he seems to be saying is, I want you to join the team, but the size of your role will expand as we bring on new clients. And he was very clear that this approach had given him scope to grow the practice. And I think that's something we haven't heard that way before. His whole philosophy seems to be centered on constant experimentation, accepting not everything will be right perfectly the first time, and seeing both mistakes and changes in direction as invaluable learning experiences that they are. And that ethos, I think, also underpinned both his personal development and how he's built and continues to shape the firm. To be fair, and maybe a little controversial, I'd suggest that some of those mistakes and learning experiences could be avoided by accountants who engage more with others rather than try and do everything by themselves. And I regularly hear of accountants getting together in local areas around the country, and I would say this, wouldn't I? Certainly the members of my sole practice club feel this way too, that they're not having to go it alone, and they're able to discuss what works, what doesn't work with other members of the sole practice club.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that he exudes confidence, though. And this sort of barefoot approach is all about, you know, if you like what you see, then get in touch. This is me, take it or leave it. And from a brand person, what I love is that he lives and breathes the kind of the look and feel that he has created. So everything is genuine. Everything is kind of on the table. Yes, he's made mistakes, but I think a little bit like Kath Docherty, who we'll talk about later, you know, I think he reframes it as, you know, you've got to make the mistakes to actually move forward. So he doesn't necessarily see that as a negative. So, yeah, I was charmed by him. I think he's just a very good egg who definitely has, you know, his client's best interests at heart.
I think that's right. And it's worth, again, if you haven't heard the episode, it's worth listening to it so that you understand why Philippa sums him up in that way. And after the main pod, we recorded an extra 10 minutes with Jon, during which he talked about how he's addressing the biggest challenges in his practice. And there were some great insights there, which we'll be sharing with our Patreons. First time I ever heard somebody say Patreons on a podcast, I thought they were mispronouncing the word patron. But it transpires it's a real thing, and we're setting up a Patreon account for subscribers to our podcast. And one of the key insights he shared was, how do you decide which issues to address first in your own practice? So more on that for our Patreon subscribers once we go live with that very soon.
Great stuff. Yeah, very exciting news. And, you know, delivering value. And we've heard even this week a couple of stories about how people love the podcast, certainly as a solo business owner, a solo practitioner who feels that, you know, she has the confidence to do it her way just from listening to what others are saying. So she doesn't feel alone. And then somebody else who genuinely kind of admitted that he has recruited somebody as a result of them watching the episode where he was kind of featured. And in fact, that person had been so disillusioned with the industry that they were thinking of leaving. So, it's fabulous for us to hear these insights, which make it, success stories, which make it so worthwhile. Anyway, we should move on to the next person, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
And that is Noel Guilford. What did you think about Noel then? What were your insights?
Well, Noel started his own practice almost 25 years ago after previously being managing partner of a regional office of a top 10 firm of accountants. And like many of our other guests, he referenced an early mistake setting up his own practice of taking on too many of the wrong type of clients. But he learned to be far more thorough when interviewing prospects during discovery calls. And I think that thought process, that attitude of recognizing that you're interviewing clients as well as them interviewing you, is really insightful and worth remembering. And like Sharon Baker and others, he wants to know about prospects' personal goals, not just their business goals. And I was initially fascinated to hear he turns away more prospects than he takes on. But I think that's something that's come with experience, and also related to the fact that his entry-level fees are £250 a month. That's £3,000 a year. Now, this is clear on his website, but not everyone would have spotted it. And of course, Noel is so engaging and has reached that time of life where he's willing to help support callers, even when they aren't ideal clients. And I must admit, I could relate to that very much.
Yeah, no, he was, because we certainly had somebody who was listening who was, I think they were an apprentice, weren't they? And they were finding it all really, really helpful. And at the end of the guest slot, he did kind of say, if you want to get in touch, he'd be happy to chat, which is, as you say, it's about experience, about time in the business. But also, he is genuinely, he's got a lot of experience, including a marketing qualification. So he was talking about his kind of corporate days when he was working for a large firm and they'd all been sent off to do a marketing qualification. But that really stands him in great stead, because he's able to look at all elements of a client's business and really understand how marketing works and sort of check that they're doing the right things, proposing options. So I know that he was, we've been talking to a client about doing podcasts, or, it genuinely, for somebody who you would think maybe wouldn't be the youngest, most modern kind of accountant, is actually, well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, but you wouldn't expect that level of marketing knowledge and insight. But he is really, I mean, anybody who works with him is in a really privileged position, I think, because he's got their back, not just with the finances, but also with some key kind of levers that must be pulled within the business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, with Noel, we recorded an extra 15 minutes for our Patreons. And we asked him, as we did with Jon, we asked him to talk about how he's addressing the biggest challenges in his practice. That quickly diverged into a huge number of enormously valuable business advice tips for accountants running their own practices. He's a real voice of experience, one that's not been heard before, because Accountant Success Secrets was his first podcast interview. So I was thrilled about that too. Yeah,
the irony is not lost on me there, given he is a marketing person as well. So it was lovely to have him guest, and he was brilliant. And as you say, in the Patreon section, I mean, he came up with a long list of insights and kind of recommendations, which, really, it was just gold dust, wasn't it?
It was just absolutely astonishing. Yeah, and I realised that we just sort of so diverged from the challenges that he's facing. Just wonderful. an extra 15 minutes seemed the limit that we should be going for there. He was very generous with his time. Anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, the next and our final reflection today is our most recent interviewee in episode 66. And that was Kath Docherty, who runs Hydriff Accounting in Cirencester, and has been a client of mine for several years now and across several businesses too.
Well, I have to say that I didn't know that when I was looking at her website in preparing for the session. And I thought, well, she has clearly worked with somebody who knows what they're doing. Yeah, I'd love it to be Philippa. It probably isn't, but and it didn't surprise me at all when you confessed that she was a client, because everything I've heard you saying about how you work with accountants was just, the proof of the pudding was in her website, the way everything tied together. And then when she talked as well, you could just see that it's exactly what you always say about sort of brand story and reflecting the individual and all of that sort of wonderful stuff. So a great example there.
Thank you. I can feel my head swelling now.
There's me fanboying you. Fanboying? Know what the expression is. I was going to start by echoing something that Kath said right at the start of the interview, and that is that her main motivation is helping people. And I smiled when she said that, because I remember when I was being interviewed for partnership first time round, a large firm, and the senior partner took me for lunch, and I thought, well, he's going to ask me, what do I enjoy doing? What am I good at? And I need to think of something clever and impressive to say. But in the event, I was so nervous in this fancy restaurant, I just said the truth, which was that I like helping people, just as Kath told us that's what drives her. And at the time, I remember sort of thinking, oh, damn, saying that to the senior partner is just a little bit wishy-washy. But frankly, as I've grown more seasoned, which is my preferred term,
Yes.
I've realised it was an honest truth at the time. And it remains the case today. It's who I am. So I applaud Kath for announcing publicly that that's her main driver as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Kath, she takes no prisoners. She's very direct. She's crystal clear in her opinions, thoughts, and how she can support people. And very much no nonsense approach, which is really valuable. Her background, yes, she's worked sort of commercially as well, for a large corporate. I think it's BAE, isn't it? So she's kind of spanned both sides, and she's taken that kind of experience with her. I love the fact that she's got to the stage in her career where she's really clear about what she likes doing and how she enjoys supporting and helping people. And that's pretty much it. She's defined it. That's what she does. And she has a real clear reason for why she does that as well. And she's sort of pinpointed that moment in time. It's not just, FD services or whatever, but it's a moment in time where somebody seriously needs some support and she can step in. And the fact that she works with other accountants as well really does suggest that niche isn't competing with another accountant. She's actually adding a layer of value around it. So I was really impressed to hear that. What about you? What did you think?
Well, I loved the way that about how excited she said that she became when she moved in first using software after starting life with pencil and paper and adding machines in the office, which I can remember too, and the excitement of extended trial balances and making them balance, and what do the kids of today know about such things? It just made me think that for those accountants who are concerned or worried about AI replacing them, that if we think of that merely as sort of the newest version of the software, it's not replacing what accountants do, but it's making it easier to do the day-to-day stuff. And sooner or later we will all need to embrace AI, or at least once it becomes more reliable, in the same way that we embraced spreadsheets and then cloud bookkeeping software.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are some horror stories, aren't there, with, some of the big four recently, where, the pendulum has swung really significantly one side, and, they're really considering what they do around their junior staff. But I think as things calm down, everybody will realise that there is a need for the human side and a need for the AI side as well. And you have to be able to translate that. And it's no good to think, well, the senior people in the business can just manage all of that and we'll just cut out the junior part, because in essence, those senior people have to know how to interact with AI. So I think it's one of those where people need to embrace it. They need to understand how it is a really important tool, which it is. I don't think you can deny it, but there has to be that realistic pragmatism going forward to say, what are the parts that, AI can deliver on, and what are the parts that people can deliver on?
I think that's right as well. I'm sort of hesitating as to whether to sort of go into part of my AI talks for accountants and the impact AI is going to have. And I'm not going to sort of slip into that, but suffice it to say, it's not going to replace accountants. It's going to supplement us in the same way that spreadsheets did. And in time, we will get used to doing things in a different way, in the same way that there are far fewer secretaries in offices now than there used to be, because even partners have had to learn how to type. I say even partners. So back in the day, that was pretty much the feeling and the attitude. These days, most people come into an office well equipped with how to do that. Anyway, coming back to Kath, like many of our guests, she referenced her early approach to pricing as being a key mistake that she made and learned from. And I particularly liked the way that she referenced the way that so many accountants, and she admits she's done this as well. You ask for a copy of the previous accounts from a prospective client and then immediately turn to the back page to see what they've been paying their accountants. And then there's a temptation to simply quote a lower fee. And from the way Kath was talking, it struck me that I imagine that she picks up clients by expressing surprise at how low the fee is that they paid their previous accountant, or perhaps suggesting that it's so low that maybe that's why they're looking for a new accountant, if that's all they're paying, because clearly they're not getting very much for that fee. Her fees are higher, and she's happy with that because she does a lot more than the client might be getting from their current accountant. And I imagine that's an approach that quite a lot of accountants could adopt too. So do go back and listen to what Kath was saying there to get the full story.
Yeah, I mean, I did love that, because I think she does look at the back page, as she said, and has done, but now I think she uses it too to work out whether this prospect is an ideal client as well, because it's part of the story, isn't it? If that's what they've been paying, firstly, it could be a mistake on the other practices side, but equally, it could be that this person is not invested emotionally in having a really good financial partner. And I suspect that is a source of questioning at the time where they have that conversation as, why this fee, and I think sometimes she even admitted that they probably hadn't paid enough for their last one. So that was interesting as well. And she took on somebody who said that they thought that their previous accountant was too expensive, but by the time they'd finished, they agreed to pay even more with Kath. So but that's a, for those maybe less experienced accountants and bookkeepers who are listening into this, some of that comes with experience. She wasn't always like that. She didn't always kind of enjoy that sort of battle of, cost and pricing. It's just she's now got into a position where she's very clear about her brand. She's very clear about how she supports and when she doesn't. And she's just had a lot of conversations over the years that mean that she's now well prepared.
Very, very much so. And again, with her established practice, Kath's learned not to get despondent on the odd occasion that she loses a client. I thought this was wonderful. It sounds as if she almost gets excited because any spaces that are freed up by losing a client are an opportunity to go and win a new client who will hopefully pay higher fees and allow her to focus on doing more of the work that she enjoys most. I thought that was a really great attitude and one to be commended. But again, it comes with experience, and you have to have an established practice to be earning enough from it to be able to sort of celebrate losing a client. Oh, that's good. Now I can go and win. I've got space for another client that I'll enjoy working with more. Anyway, Kath also shared additional insights just for our Patreons, which I think will further inspire anyone who's enjoyed the podcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had some good conversation with Kath after the sort of cameras had stopped rolling. So yeah, yet more insight, yet more kind of 10 minutes of magic, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so once time has flown, hasn't it? We need to wrap things up.
Yeah, we'll be back to our normal interview format the week after next. We're taking a week's break for holidays, and then there'll be another reflections episode like this in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, do please contact Mark or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast in August, or if there's somebody you'd like to recommend we interview.
You'll find all the interviews and episodes we've mentioned on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts, and shortly on Patreon as well. If you feel we deserve it, please give us another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That's really thrilling to see. That also helps us to reach an even wider audience. And please let us have your feedback and share the love online too. If you're a listener who just searches online each week for the next edition, or you only watch this on the LinkedIn feed, do please subscribe on one of the podcast channels so we have a better idea of how many regular listeners we have. It doesn't matter which podcast channel, but and you can also subscribe to the company page for the Accountant Success Secrets podcast on LinkedIn, as that would help us with numbers as well.
Yeah. Okay, just before we finish up, our thanks again to the sponsor of this episode, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know that you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
And thanks too to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using the website findataxadvisor.online, where you can also register to try their weekly tax tips written especially for general practitioner accountants. And Philippa, should we quickly share our contact details in the traditional way? How can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
So you can find me on LinkedIn or on my website, which is www.insight101.co.uk. I support accountants and bookkeepers to stand out. I think you'll find that in this reflections episode, I focus very much on the brand and the marketing and how our guests have managed to differentiate themselves. Now, it's not always easy to do that. Sometimes it takes people like us to interview them to find out what that nugget of truth is. But if you are interested in finding that out for yourself, then do please get in touch, because it means that your website and your marketing generally can be absolutely unique, crystal clear in its messaging, and targeting the right ideal client. So, Mark, how can listeners find out more about you and your support services for accountants?
Well, online everywhere. My website is bookmarkly.co.uk. Even the business card is a bookmark. Most of the accountants I support have been running their own practice for a while without co-directors or partners. Not all, though. Yesterday I had an extra conversation with a member of the Sole Practice Club who started out by saying, it's so wonderful that you let us just have these extra chats with you. And at the end of the conference, you said, you've put my mind so much at rest. Really appreciate your experience and insights there. And I think he was impressed at how quickly I'd understood the issue, but that's because I've got a tad more experience. That he only set up his practice a year or so ago. And so that was a joy in terms of helping people. I loved that. And obviously I spent more time with him because he's a member of the Sole Practice Club than I would do a total stranger. But essentially, people who work with me have reached a stage where they want a decent sounding board to help them feel more confident as regards their plans, challenges, and key decisions. Always happy to have an initial conversation, no obligation, no strings, and no pushy sales techniques. In any event, I'd also encourage you, please, to reach out and connect with both Philippa and me on LinkedIn, and to follow the podcast pages on LinkedIn and on Facebook.
That's it. We're done. We'll be back next week with episode 63.
I didn't up that bit. I was close to it. We won't be back next week.
No, we won't. Sorry.
I'm terribly sorry about that. Due to holidays, we'll be back with our 55th interview with Richard Wilson, artist, on the 23rd of July. So until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, thanks ever so much, Philippa, and to everybody listening, and anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.